Oh, and I should have told you, we're also talking about putting these on YouTube.
Oh yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah, I remember.
we haven't decided that officially yet, but we're talking about maybe putting these on YouTube. I should have warned you before I started recording.
Okay, okay.
No, Elle will cut all this. It's fine. But all right, so I got in front of me episode one. So we're starting the first episode, aiming for about 20 minutes. I want to talk about what we're doing here and then also a little bit about growth mindset because to me a lot of my struggles with Spanish come from like struggles around growth mindset, right? And it's okay to be imperfect and the only way to like get better at something is to practice and the only way to practice is to be bad at something for a while, right? Or for a long time
Yes,
in my case. So,
for a long
um
time.
yeah. So I'll go ahead and kick us off, I guess. So, welcome everyone to this episode of Dairy News and Views from ISU. I'm not Jen Bentley. I'm your host for today, Gail Carpenter, and we're going to be doing a little series that's going to be something kind of different. I'm joined today by our host, Miguel Rangel, and Miguel's claim to fame is he's got several. Miguel's a great person. He Miguel and I got to know each other when he worked at our as the manager of our university dairy. Since then, he's started his own consulting business, and he works a lot with employee management with large commercial dairies. And so he does a lot of really cool stuff, and I really enjoy talking to Miguel about a lot of topics. But we really have a, a a mutual appreciation for people management and understanding how to work with people. And the other thing that's unique, I don't know about unique, but the other thing that's special about Miguel is that he is from Mexico, and so he is a native Spanish speaker, and I, as many of you might be able to guess, am not.
Didn't know that.
Yes. So we are calling this series Spanish Fridays. So I guess I should say, welcome to Spanish Fridays. And Miguel, in Spanish, I would say that as bienvenido a Spanish Friday. That's how bad I am at Spanish. Okay. So how would I say welcome to Spanish Fridays in Spanish?
Oh, dirías, you would say, bienvenidos a Viernes de Español.
Viernes Español. So just
Yes.
Fridays, Spanish Friday. Okay. Bienvenidos
Okay.
Viernes Español. There you go.
Viernes de Español.
Yes.
That's it. Perfect. Good job.
All right. Thank you. And I promise our listeners that it's not just going to be cringy Spanish from me, but there is going to be a lot of cringy Spanish from me. So I want to. So let me set the stage for this idea and why we thought that maybe we should do this series. So I have talked to Miguel and a lot of others who work in kind of the bilingual space, working in employee management and training employees. And I've always said, like, I want to get better at my Spanish. How do I get better at my Spanish? And they say, well, you got to practice. And I say, crap, I don't want to do that. I just want to be good at it, right? Um, I took 2 years of Spanish one in high school. And it's not because I repeated Spanish one, it's because we switched Spanish teachers. So I took Spanish one in high school, and then I basically took Spanish one again, just from a different teacher. And then I took a semester long course that was like Spanish for agriculture in college. But that was like 15 years ago. So I find if I'm gonna like I'll gear myself up, right. I'll go to a farm and be like, I'm gonna practice like speaking Spanish to the people that work there. And then they just like give me so much pity, right? they
Like,
just they start communicating with me in English, or if they have somebody who speaks English around, they start communicating with me pretty quick because they just feel so bad, I think. And I do try, but it's hard to practice when you're not very good at something. Um, and so I invited my friend Miguel to come force me to practice a little bit more. And hopefully we can pick up some vocabulary and some things along the way that other dairy professionals can also use, and maybe start practicing a little bit on their own. Um, and yeah, also maybe talk about like just dairy related topics too. So, um, Miguel, I introduced myself and I kind of introduced you. Why don't you introduce yourself?
Well, no, yeah, thank you. No, by the way, it is true that this is how things happen. I remember when we were working at ISU, and one of the things that I always thought was that Gail has a really good engagement with rapport with students. Not only that, they like to work with her. And it was funny that, I mean, I guess I have to say this, but in my case, even you mentioned like students like to work with you. I'm not here thinking I'm the greatest, but it was good to hear from Gail saying something like that. So the purpose of this podcast is that we are going to discuss these topics that are relevant, but most importantly, sometimes overlooked. Because yes, when you are out there working in the industry, these are the kind of topics that people need to hear. You have leaders that, well, sometimes they were just put in that spot, and which is good. But just like anything else, you need to prepare to be in that spot. And issues arise when you have a leader who is not communicating effectively, who is not actually leading with example, etc. And that's when employees get discouraged. That's where employees leave. You have issues in between employees. So there are many things, and I think Gail and I, we are passionate about these topics. We really like it, and I just think other industries are ahead on that regard. The dairy industry is following, so we just need to push so the dairy industry has the same success that some other industries have regarding employees, or in this case, leadership.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah.
So yeah, Miguel and I have a lot of great conversations about this, and we're excited for the rest of you to hear some of these conversations as well, because I think there's a lot that people can maybe think about with some of the things that we want to talk about. And you can disagree with us. That's perfectly acceptable. And if you have any thoughts, encourage you to leave a comment on this podcast or wherever you saw it posted, um, or reach out
Hmm.
to us directly, because I think that there's a lot of nuance, I think, in some of the topics that we want to talk about, right? And different people have different leadership styles,
Hmm.
and different ways of managing people. And
Hmm.
personally, I think you agree with this, Miguel, but there's no one right way to lead, right? Or to manage people or to manage students or whoever it is. Um, just because something works for your neighbor doesn't mean it's going to work for you, right?
Yes, that's for sure. It's just like any farm. Every farm is different, right? You go to one farm and they have a system that works for them, but you go to another farm, and if you try to replicate, it may not work because each farm has different circumstances. Same with people. People are
Hmm.
different. You need to know the people you are working with, right? And the only way you do that is by actually engaging in conversations or
Hmm.
friendships, etc. Employees need to be understood to a deeper level. That way you know what you're working with. This is very similar to, well, in your classroom, you know who is very keen to, let's say, go out of his way to help you do something. There are some that are really good at reading articles and memorizing, remembering everything. And there are some that maybe they are not that good in the classroom, but out there, they have very good animal handling, for example.
Hmm.
Well, it's the same with people. Some people, you just need to understand them better and see how they can be of benefit. But at the end of the day, is that create that genuine relationship with your people so you
Yeah,
know who is who can do what, etc.
yeah.
Yeah.
There's a concept. called psychological safety. And I think sometimes that gets a overused or used in the wrong context, especially in like the education space and working with younger people. But I do think it's something that's very important and very valid, especially when it comes to employee management. Um, in that and so psychological safety is, I should probably look it up because I'm not a psychologist. I should also say that we just really like reading books, right?
Yes.
But uh, this whole idea of you're in a safe space, and I know that might be something that kind of that term safe space might be something that people don't necessarily like either. But my students or my employees should feel safe coming to me if they have a problem, right? And they should be able to come to me and say like, "Hey, this is something that happened. This is what I've tried to do to address it. Here's what I need." And they should feel like that's something they can do without being yelled at or being like, treated
Scolded.
badly, right? Um, and I think a lot of like psychological safety is something that I think I experienced a lot when I think back to some of my mentors that have really had a positive impact on me. That whole idea that I can go to you to troubleshoot, right?
Mhm.
Um, and and not be afraid that I'm gonna get if what happens when you don't have psychological safety is somebody runs into the barn with a skid loader and then pretends like it never happened, and then you're trying to find out like who ran into the building, right? Um, and
Yeah, very
so
common.
yeah. And so if you don't have that, people feel like they're going to hide what's going on versus actually bring it forward. So I know that's a term. I'm actually just Googling in real time, Googling uh, the formal definition for psychological safety.
But
Um,
that is true, and one of those things that is important is that pretty much employees trust you, right?
yeah, yeah,
Yes,
that's a
because
great way to
if
look
they
at it. Yeah,
can't trust you, that's when you have issues. Employees are not going to let you know. It is true that there has, but depending on how you work with your employees, you have to have consequences, right? If something happens, I mean, you cannot have an employee that is running over things left and right, but at the same time, there is a balance. You can also have employees who do something and they come to you and tell you, "Hey, you know what? I messed up. I'm sorry. This
yeah,
happened. Okay, what are we gonna do now? Okay,
yeah,
the employee is not just gonna get up and leave. Now we need to fix this problem, or at least the owner knows maybe something simpler that someone else needs to fix. But if not, employees need to be committed
yeah,
so they are part of the team. They feel like part of the team. They know that if they damage a gate,
yeah,
the consequences are for everybody, not just the owner. Not
yeah,
it's not just the cost of the gate. It's all the repercussions around hitting a gate.
yeah. So
Mhm.
I have the definition right here in front of me. Psychological safety is the belief that one will not be punished or humiliated for speaking up with ideas, questions, concerns, or mistakes. It's a simple and to the point way of describing that. I think a lot of times people hear the term psychological safety and it kind of has this idea of we're going to hold hands around the campfire and sing kumbaya, right? Which is not how the real world works. Psychological safety is not, it is not being able to say to like having negative criticism, right? It's never being able, it is, I'm going to use the double negative here, so it's going to get confusing. And I'm glad we're speaking English because I'd be so much more confused if we were speaking Spanish.
Just wait up,
Um,
wait when we get to the Spanish part.
yeah. But it's not never having negative feedback, right? It's not saying that you can't go to an employee or a student or whoever else and somebody that you're managing and say, hey, here's some feedback for you to improve, right? It is not never saying you're doing this wrong. It is not never saying you need to shape up. It is not never saying you need to start coming to work on time or whatever it is. Like just because your feelings might be hurt by some of that feedback doesn't mean that that's not psychological safety, right? Psychological safety is not just feeling warm and fuzzy all the time and just again holding hands around the campfire. But it is making it safe to speak up when you have when you see concerns, when you have new ideas, or if there's a problem that you need to address. So
Hmm. Yes.
why did I go off on that tangent? I went on off on that tangent because I think the idea of psychological safety really ties in with growth mindset. And growth mindset is something that I've personally been doing a lot of reading about. It's something I've been trying to implement more with my students in particular and some of the people that I manage. And growth mindset is, to me, something becomes growth mindset if I put a yet at the end of the sentence, right? Like I am not good at speaking Spanish yet, right? And
Yeah,
understanding that just because I'm bad at something now doesn't mean I'm going to be bad at something forever.
exactly.
Um, and and that's okay. And when you have a workplace or a community that has psychological safety, then it's okay to have that. Then growth mindset is fostered in that sense because an employee can say like, I am wanting to improve in this area, or a student can say, this is something that I'm afraid to do, but I'm going to do it anyway because I know that if I practice, I'll get better. It also means that sometimes it means you're going to be bad at things when you first do them.
Normal. Yes, it's normal.
So, yeah, and so it's okay. And that's why here I'm trying to model that a little bit with being like, okay, this is something that I'm not actually skilled at, um, but if I practice it, I can at least get a little bit. I don't think I'll ever be fluent. But at least
Well,
hopefully I can at some point in my life be conversant. um,
yeah,
so I'm imagining somebody listening to this podcast, listening to our discussion right now, Miguel, and thinking about, um, well, that's really great for Dr. Gale with her PhD up in the ivory tower at Kildee Hall in Ames, Iowa, right? And it's okay on your college campus. You're like isolated from the rest of what you're in this like happy little bubble, right, on a college campus. But I can imagine somebody thinking, listening to this podcast and being like, well, but I need my employees to like not mess up. I need them to, and we do, right? We need people to be on time, on task, following protocols, not like sticking to what they're trained to do, right? And so, like, as you're listening to me talk, can you put yourself in that person's shoes and say why some of these ideas might still be valuable on a dairy farm?
yes. No, and I think those are pretty good, great points. And if we imagine that, yes, the dairy industry, we know it's a it's an industry that it's a 24/7, 365. We are working all the time. It's working, working, working. And yeah, people may wonder, yes, when you talk about these concepts, they sound great, but maybe they are not applicable in real life. The
Mm-hmm.
thing is that they are. The same way university does research about different additives for feed, etc., that eventually they end up in the dairy industry, right? Well, this is research that has been done and that has proven effective. This is research that it's done about the psyche, the mind, right? So let me give you an example, kind of what Gail said. But you have employees, which in the past we used to call stubborn employees, right? They are stubborn, they are stubborn, they are just the way they are. Now we know that with age, stubbornness sets in.
Mm-hmm.
But it is not just because, it is because experience has taught a person that certain things happen certain way, and that's the way it is. Now, when you have employees who they are just stubborn, and they are not willing to try something new, or they don't bring new ideas, for example, and they just complain, or they are set in their ways, no matter how many meetings, no matter how many times you talk to them, etc. That is a clear example of a fixed mindset, right? That's the
Hmm.
opposite of the growth mindset. A growth mindset is just like Gail said. We are not going to, I mean, this is the first episode of this podcast. Is this podcast be is going to be perfect? No. But we are not going to stop just because the podcast is not great or
Yeah.
perfect, because that's the limiting factor. At some point, you need to do it, even if it is not as you think it's going to be, because you have to try and then get better with what you learn. So, if you have an employee that instead of just complaining about things not being done, says, you know what, I know we have these issues, it's really affecting how I can find the cows that I need to breed, for example, but how can we fix it? What can I do? Right? In the past, we have tried these many things and it hasn't worked, but I have some ideas. So if they bring you ideas instead of complaints, if they are willing to meet with you and talk about what needs to be done, if they are willing to learn from the past mistakes and said, okay, I'm gonna do it different this time. If you tell them, hey, in the past you have done this and you haven't changed, and we have talked about this. So what's going on? So the employee pretty much is gonna tell you, yes, I think I need to improve, or they're gonna tell you, you know what, I really don't care, or it is what it is. It has never been different. So this is what we have, and this is not going to be better. So those are the factors that tell you whether someone has growth mindset or fixed mindset.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Yeah.
think sometimes when it can get a little bit meta sometimes, right? I'm like reading about ways to improve growth mindset in the people that I mentor or oversee or whatever it is. And then sometimes I'm afraid to do some of those strategies because I feel like I'm going to mess them up.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
so, like, I think we can, like, it's not just about trying to foster this in the people that you're managing. It's also about fostering it within yourself, right? And being like, you know what?
Yes.
I might not be able to give perfect feedback. I'm going to try this new way of giving feedback and we'll see if it works, right? And but you try and you find out and you learn from that experience, right? Um so yeah, it's not just about it is about fostering it in other people, but it's also about and this is hard a lot of times telling yourself like, hey, just because I'm not doing this perfectly doesn't mean that
Uh-huh.
I
That
shouldn't be
it
doing
shouldn't
it.
be done.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And yeah, that goes both ways. I mean, not only employees need to learn about this, that's the other thing I always tell my clients. We also need to keep improving. And we also need to learn how to talk to our employees. That's why it's important to get to know them. And it is important for us to know how to say things so they are
Hmm.
received better, or at least we kind of create or incite change instead of, well, having an issue with an employee or an employee feeling resentful or just upset.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, with that, I think that might be a good place to wrap up this episode. I do want to talk a little bit about what my goals are. We mentioned this a little bit, but I've got some specific goals in mind. Um, so we want to talk about these, like you said, the topics that are often overlooked. People make farms work, right?
Mhm.
And so we want to spend some time digging into that. But also some more dairy, some more like practical dairy knowledge as well. Um, Personally, I have a couple goals. One of my goals is to practice Spanish and get a little better. My other goal is to not sound like a Karen when I'm speaking Spanish. And I don't know if people will know what I mean when I say that, but I always like, I always think of the scene from Bridesmaids when she's like, we took Spanish together, and she just like rants, like just says random Spanish words, like,
Mhm.
oh, bienvenido a casa. Like it's just like
Yeah, yeah.
and la escuela and like just kind of get like I don't want to sound like when a person I don't know the politically correct way to say this, but like when a person is not a native Spanish speaker and is an American, right?
Oh,
um
we
like a
like you
Midwestern,
mean
like think about me. Like I'll just throw myself under the bus, right? Like a
like
traditional
gringa?
Midwestern. Yes.
Gringo or gringa?
I don't know if I'm allowed to say that or not, but um and you can hear in their accent, right? Like the Midwest, like they're saying Spanish words, but they still have like that Midwestern or wherever they're from, like that accent. Like, I would like to be better about not having that accent when I talk or when
Oh.
I try to speak Spanish. So I always feel like when I'm practicing Spanish, like the Midwestern still kind of comes out while I'm doing it. And it just sounds like a Karen. Like it sounds like some like grouchy lady at the grocery store or something like that. But
But I guess the one thing that it's important to mention is that a lot of Spanish speakers, they actually acknowledge that you try, and this is for
yeah,
anyone who tries to speak Spanish, even if you think you don't sound like a native, because I know I don't sound like a native English speaker. That's just the way it is. Yes, I always working on it, but it's just I your muscles in your mouth, your tongue, they are not geared towards English. They are
yeah, it's
geared
true.
towards Spanish. So that is something that is not, I guess, it's information that is out there, but that's why you can't roll R's like ferrocarril and carro, because
Yeah,
your muscles were not geared. You don't have those sounds. Anyway, it is try to speak Spanish. Believe me, people care more about you trying to speak their language than how you sound. I just want to leave you with that
yeah.
regarding Spanish in that regard.
That's a fair point. Like I don't judge people for not having a native Midwestern accent. So why should I assume that other people are judging me for not having for having an accent? I have the accent that I have. That's a really good point and a great example of not letting perfectionism stop us from
Otherwise,
trying new
I
things.
wouldn't
Yeah.
speak English because if I'm gonna think about every single thing that I'm gonna say wrong, even though I know grammatically how to say it, but I make a mistake, even in Spanish, I make mistakes, and you too in
Yeah.
English. So it's
Yep.
normal. Don't worry
Yep.
about that.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's a great note to end on.
Yeah.
How would
Thanks.
I say see you next week?
We
Hasta
can say,
something.
usually in Spanish, you would say, we see each other next week, right? Nos vemos la siguiente semana.
Nos
That's
vemos?
plural. Nos vemos because we are talking about us, nos,
Okay.
nosotros. So, nos vemos, sí,
Okay.
la siguiente semana, the next week.
La
Or
siguiente semana?
la
Is that what you're
siguiente
saying?
semana.
So,
Yes.
nos vemos la siguiente semana?
Yes, like that, with your
Ah, there you
Midwestern
go.
accent.
Well, hopefully
Just
this
like
didn't
that.
scare people away. All
No,
right.
this is a safe space.
Yes, that's right.
Psychological safe
Yeah.
space. People can mess it up.
Yep.
It's fine. We're not gonna judge.
All right. Shall we jump into our second episode then?
Sure.
All right.
Let's go for it.
Let's get it out of here. All right. All right, Elle, as you're listening to this is episode 2. Um, all right. Welcome everyone. Hola y
Hola.
bienvenidos a
Bienvenido.
Viernes Español. Is that right?
Así es. Muy
All
bien,
right.
sí.
With as we discussed in our last episode, my strong Midwestern accent probably coming through. Um, but we're choosing to be somewhat okay with that for at least a little while. Um,
For the sake
uh,
of progress. For the
that's
sake
right.
of
Yes,
progress.
that's right. Yes, not to get so obsessed with not sounding like a Karen that I never speak Spanish. For those of you who didn't hear our last episode, well, for those of you who are regular listeners, you've probably noticed that I'm not Jen Bentley. I'm Gail Carpenter, state dairy specialist
What?
with Iowa State. Yep. Jen's our normal host, but we've started doing a series, a special series on Fridays that we're calling Spanish Fridays. And like I said, I'm Gail, and I'm joined by my co-host for this series, Miguel Rangel. And Miguel, would you like to not just reintroduce yourself for the people who didn't hear the last episode, just briefly?
Yes, just briefly for those new or they don't know me, but yes, I have a well, I know Gail since we were working at ISU, so we always have these very good conversations about not only cows, but we talk about people, and that's a topic that we talked well, pretty often. So over the years, obviously, we have seen each other now. I don't work at ISU, but I have my own consulting and recruiting business. But this is a topic that it's always relevant. Not only
Hmm.
Gail and I talk about these things, but I this is the stuff that I discuss with my clients at work. Well, we decided to, okay, why don't we have a little bit of a podcast when we can talk about these topics who sometimes are overlooked, but they are extremely important for the dairy
Hmm.
industry.
Yeah. So we've already, if you missed our first episode, you can go back and take a listen to that. That was published last week. Um, and this week we are going in and talking about well, I want to talk about an article that I found in English and Spanish. But before we jump in, and the link to this art, I should say for our listeners, the link to this article will be in the show notes. So you can go click on it and you can read through it and take a peek at it. Either, well, if you're driving, please don't do that now. But if after you're driving, if you want to go back and figure out what we were talking about. But before we jump into that, I'm curious for you, Miguel. Um, I was trying to find some Spanish resources out there, and I know there's a lot of places that do really good Spanish language training for employees. Um, but what? So this is going to be from El Lechero, which is from Progressive Publishing, so the people who do like Progressive Forage and Progressive Dairy and all that. And then I know that Horde's Dairyman also has a Spanish blog.
Yes.
What other resources are out there that you recommend for Spanish language resources?
Well, I know Progressive Dairy, they also have articles in Spanish and English.
Hmm.
And I know I've seen some materials in Spanish. And I think this is through All Tech.
Hmm.
I've seen a lot, for example, when I visit farms, I've seen, which I know a lot of companies do that, but they have even trainings in Spanish, or they have these posters where you can see everything it's in Spanish. Now, if you think about, okay, I would like to know more about practicing Spanish, so that's definitely YouTube is a great resource.
Hmm.
And because a lot, with technology these days, you can use subtitles on those videos. And another thing that is useful is, I don't know if you guys use Google Translate.
Hmm.
I mean, there are words that definitely, I mean, if you are in a pickle, that's something that at the end of the day, I understand how complicated it is when you have to get a message across and you can't communicate. Well, I think Google Translate can help you out in when you are in a pickle. You can
Hmm.
really send the message. And the other thing you can do, I don't know if you use apps, I suppose messaging apps. And WhatsApp, for example, they have a feature where you write the or type the message in English and you can translate it to Spanish and send the message in Spanish.
Hmm.
So I use that with some of my farms because that's a good way for people to communicate via text. So
Hmm.
the text is somewhat understood, and I think that's a lot better than trying to do it in person if the language is not there.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah.
I know WhatsApp's very popular, and very commonly used, and it's just socially too, right? It's like a lot of Latin Americans will use WhatsApp, and a lot of countries
Well,
actually will use
actually,
WhatsApp very,
it's used in you would be you would be surprised, but all over the world, a lot of people use
yeah,
WhatsApp.
yeah. Um, it's kind of a default messaging app for a lot of
It's
places. Yeah,
it's easier to use. It's pretty easy, and it's you can send files, messages, pictures, so it's a lot simpler than using I guess, the messaging system that we usually use.
yeah,
No, I WhatsApp is a lot easier.
yeah, yeah. It's a great way to quickly get information to people
Hmm.
too, right? I know we talked a
Exactly.
little bit about meetings, and we'll have another episode where we kind of focus on meetings, everybody's favorite word, right? But there's
Oh,
also
well, yeah.
like meetings that should have been an email. As somebody who works in academia, I have a lot of meetings that should have been an email. And I assume that there's also meetings that could have been a WhatsApp, right? Like that you can
Yes.
kind of make your meetings more effective, and you can make your communication more effective by using some of these tools. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Exactly. I guess that's like anything else. Having a meeting, you need to know how to hold a meeting. You cannot
Yeah.
just say, let's
Yeah.
have a meeting. If you don't know how to talk to people, you don't have an agenda, you don't know what you're going to talk about, and you don't have a goal and objective that at the end of the meeting, these are the things that we will accomplish, then don't have the meeting because the meeting is not
Yeah.
going to go well.
That's right.
Yes. Hmm.
And we will have a whole episode where we talk about meetings and the pros and cons of meetings in general, and what we think are makes a meeting good. Um, but today we want to talk about this article from Elecero, and it's about. So I'm gonna with my Midwestern Karen accent. I'm gonna read the title here, and then we can kind of talk about it a little bit. So it's más allá de las pezuñas. Is that
Pezuñas.
totally butchered, or like can you understand what I'm trying to say when I say that?
Yeah, pezuñas. Yes, I understood it. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Well, you're used to listening to me. Um, so pezuñas is the Spanish word for hooves, right?
Exactly.
Yep.
Yes.
And so the rest of the title of this article is El Elemento Humano en el Manejo de la Cojera. Uh,
Mhm.
so the human element.
By the
Yes.
way, cojera is the correct term. So you
Cojera?
say cojera, it's a noun. So
Okay.
when a cow is lame, you say la vaca está coja.
Coja.
Coja. Coja. That is
She
the
is
correct.
lame.
The
Okay.
cow is lame. The thing is that in a lot of farms, people don't say coja. They say renga.
Renga?
Renga is a
Renga?
colloquial term.
Okay.
Renga. Renga. Renga.
Renga. Okay. And
But
that's like
the
a more
correct term,
colloquial
yeah, renga, let's say, is more colloquial, but lame per se is coja.
coja. And so is cojera lameness? And then
Cojera
coja
is
is
lameness.
okay. So I would say if she is lame, she's it uh would it be
La
okay?
vaca.
I'm thinking about the Spanish one, right? And we spend so much time talking about like es versus está. So would this be like a she which one would I use here if I want to say she
Okay.
is lame?
Es, es is for a more permanent state.
Right.
Está is for just a transitory state. For example, la vaca está coja. Is está because she's not going to be lame forever. It's
Okay.
just for now. Same way you say la vaca está enferma.
Mhm.
Está because she's not going to be sick forever.
Okay.
But when you
Gotcha.
say la vaca es blanco y negro,
Okay. She's
the
black and white.
cow is black and white. She's gonna be
Okay.
black and white forever. That's why you use S.
Okay. So she is, and it has nothing to do, grammar has nothing to do whether she's chronically lame or yeah,
Yeah.
or just an acute lameness event, right? So we're gonna say el vaca está coja, she is lame. Cojera is lameness, right? So that would be
Hmm.
the state of lameness. But renja is going to be the more colloquial term for lame.
Yes, that would be what people would say. Now, if you're a professor, you wouldn't say la vaca está coja, you would say la vaca claudica, which is the proper term of
Cloud
lameness.
Claudica?
Yes, claudica.
Claudica.
So I don't
Oh,
want to get you confused with
there's
that.
so
I
many
mean,
terms. We just say lame.
let's say lame and let's stop there.
Yes. But that's good. So those would be so okay. So let's stick with those for now. That's plenty of
Yeah,
terms to
that's
talk
fine.
about lameness. And we should also say you're from Mexico.
Yes,
And I'm like Mexico City area, is that right? I don't remember where
Mexico
from.
City.
Yep. But and so Miguel is because he agreed to do this, is the person who is we're hearing from. But like if you're from Argentina or Colombia or Paraguay or any of these other countries, you might have there's you're probably going to say things a lot differently than Miguel might say them. Is that?
Yes, exactly.
But you can all understand each other. Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. No, yeah, that's for sure.
yeah,
Those words are very similar.
gotcha. Yeah.
Mhm.
Um, just like I can understand somebody from Britain or Australia, or
I
wherever else
can't
it's English.
understand someone
Yeah.
from Britain.
So this is not related. This is just a side story. While we're on the topic of this, but the reason that we're doing Spanish Fridays is just kind of a personal reason for me. When I was in grad school, we used to do Spanish Fridays, and we would like practice Spanish together.
Mhm.
And I had one of my friends was from Argentina, and so she told me I had un buen acento. She told me I had a good accent.
Mhm.
Um, and then when I started my PhD, we tried to do Spanish Fridays, and I had a fellow student who was from Costa Rica, and God bless him, I could not understand anything he was saying.
Oh, yeah. Mhm. Yes, I know.
And it's the same thing with like Portuguese. I can like if I see Portuguese written out, I can kind of be like, okay, I can see a few words there that I recognize. But if I hear somebody speaking Portuguese, I have no idea. What like the sounds don't match the letters in
Hmm.
my mind.
Hmm.
Obviously, if you
Yeah.
are Portuguese, they do, or Brazilian, right? And so anyways, that's I knew like when I was thinking about people to ask for this, I knew that I could understand Miguel's accent.
Thank you.
Yes.
But wait, accent? What are
Yes.
you talking about?
I knew versus
What
like
accent?
versus somebody from I knew that I probably didn't want somebody from Costa Rica because I knew from experience that I have a hard time understanding the Costa Rican accent, but um we understood each
Uh,
other just fine when he was speaking English. It was when he was speaking Spanish. I was like, I have no idea what those letters are that you're saying. Um, but anyways, so back to the articles. So we talked about there's a whole bunch of ways to talk about lameness. Pezuñas is the term for hooves. And so I assume it's just pezuña if you're talking about a single hoof, right?
yes.
Um, but one of the things that this article focuses on is el elemento humano en el manejo de la cojera. So
Very
manejo, we're
well.
talking about management. We already talked about cojera being a term for lameness. Um, so it's talking about the human element in the management of lameness.
Hmm.
Um, and I do have I guess if we post this on YouTube, we can keep this. And if we don't post it on YouTube, Elle can cut this. But I suppose I can just share my screen
Okay,
here.
yeah. I was looking at the article here, but
Yeah.
okay, yeah.
And that way, if we are on YouTube, people can see what we're talking about. So,
Uh-huh.
the
Oh,
thing that I like about El Lechero is that it has the Spanish version and then it has the English version. And so if I'm sitting here looking at it, I can kind of pick apart some of the words that I know, and then when I get stuck, I can go down and look in the at the English section.
Mm-hmm.
But you see here our first image here is this puzzle piece. Um, and so I don't remember what these puzzle pieces are, so we'll just kind of go through them. Confianza, confianza,
Yes, trust.
trust. Oh, and we talked about trust in our first episode and that psychological
Yes.
safety.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so bienestar físico, physical. So físico, I'm guessing, as I say it out loud, that's probably physical something, right? Physical.
Welfare.
Okay, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Bienestar físico. Seguridad, is that security?
That would be safety.
Safety. Okay.
Yes, that would be safety.
And then I have no idea what to do with this. Say
Oh, is say that's the verb to be.
to be. Okay.
That's the verb to be in imperative form. I'm not gonna go into all the details, but
Yep.
se is kind, to be kind, and keep yourself safe, like out of
Okay.
danger.
Okay. Interesting.
Mhm.
And I think a lot of this ties back into what we talked about on our previous episode as well, with the whole idea of trust and safety. I'll scroll down so that people can see the English version. So be kind, be safe, physical well-being or welfare, safety, and
Well-being,
trust.
well-being.
Um, and I love how they talk about this. The key element to reducing lameness on farm is the human interaction. And I think that's true for whether we're talking about lameness, cojera, whether we're talking about
Cojera.
cojera or
Mhm.
mastitis, which is, how do I say mastitis?
Mastitis.
Mastitis. Yeah, I can
Yeah, because
imagine.
that
I
one
can,
has a Greek
yeah,
root.
right. That's kind of what yeah, it's spelled the same. Does it have an accent over anything or is it just spelled the same? Mastitis?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mastitis.
So whether you're talking about cojera or mastitis or reproduction, and that's
Reproduction. Reproducción.
reproduction, right? Like
Yes.
the human interaction is something that's incredibly important, um, regardless. So, um, and I think that I should probably get out of the English article and go back to the Spanish article because that's what I'm here to do uncomfortable things, right?
Exactly. To challenge you.
Yes. So here we see again this be kind, be safe. Um, and our so it says articular y proveer seguridad. So we said seguridad is safety, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so is
Yes.
this to uh
Articular. Articular
articulate?
is very close to,
Yeah.
in actually is the proper way of saying articulate.
Yep.
Someone that expresses a thought, an idea.
Yes. So it looks like we're talking about right here articular y proveer seguridad. So
Mm-hmm.
to talk about safety, but also to provide safety. Is that
Yes.
yes? And I
Yes,
think
that
that's
is
really
correct.
like lameness, and we know this from some bad experiences, right? That hoof trimming, lame cows are big, right? Um,
Mm-hmm.
and when they can't move themselves very well because of a condition, in this case, cojera, uh, that can provide a lot of uh, a lot of safety concerns. That um, more so even than maybe some tasks that we're used to doing like milking, right? I mean, not, safety should always be a concern, but when we're talking about animals that don't have full control over their legs because of some injury or some other physical condition, um, worker safety is incredibly important. Um,
Yes,
and
it is. It is here where you take those decisions, right? If a cow is really lame, someone needs to be aware of that fact and say, okay, I know that this cow cannot go to the parlor because she can just slip and fall, and then it's gonna be worse, or the cow can hurt someone else, or the
mhm.
cow can get hurt. herself. So that's
Yeah.
when you say, okay, let's put it in the down pen or in a pen that is closer to the parlor. Yeah, that's the talking and pretty much the well-being, talking about these issues so employees know what to do
Yeah. Yes. For the cow safety and their safety.
and their
Um,
safety.
and I like that it's saying, don't just say it, do it. Right? Is that kind of what I'm getting at here? Articular y proveer seguridad. So don't just talk about why safety is important, show that safety is important to you.
Exactly.
Um, and then we have promover el, and we said this is welfare, right? Bienestar físico. How am I doing? How bad
Bienestar
is it?
físico. Very
Bien.
well. Yes.
Okay.
Bienestar físico. You're doing well.
All right. So we're talking about welfare here. Um,
Or well-being.
or well-being. Okay.
Mhm.
Um, oh, I've got some big words in here. Oh boy. What is this one?
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
Physio and sometimes if I say them out loud, I'm like, oh, that just sounds like the English word. Here, I'll zoom in for people who are trying to see what I'm looking
Fisioterapeuta.
at. Physiotherapy. Is this just physical therapy?
Well, yes, but this is the person who is actually doing it. The
Okay.
physiotherapeuta is the physical therapist.
So is this like an employee or a
Or
veterinarian? Obviously, I'm not familiar with a
uh-huh.
lot of physical therapists for cows, but this is the person providing care to the cow.
Mhm.
Physiotherapeuta. Is that
Fisioterapeuta.
Physiotherapeuta? Physiotherapeuta. Eh? Close?
Yeah, no, fisioterapeuta. Yes, close, close. You
Okay.
you chose a really difficult one.
Yeah. I saw it right there. And so, okay,
Uh,
so when I use this term to talk about anything beyond lameness, is this a term that I could use if you're like treating mastitis or if you're treating, drenching a fresh cow? Is this a term I could use more than just in a case of lameness? Or is it not actually one that you hear a lot?
No, in the case of lameness, I think I wish I could hear more about it. Sometimes, just like you mentioned, or like example before, sometimes cows, sometimes the pusher, which is usually the person that is moving the cows right to the parlor, the person is not aware. And sometimes
Hmm.
it is not because the owners haven't told them. Sometimes you have a new pusher, sometimes it's just someone that was distracted. Could be many reasons. But yes, they sometimes don't pay attention to those animals when they should say something or do something, right? And actually, last week we talked about in a farm how if a cow is lame, it goes to the down pen, for example,
Hmm.
and everybody knows because there is a board in the parlor, so they know why the cow is in that pen. Maybe the cow is not having any drugs, but it's lame, so that warrants that cow going to, in this case, it is a really nice padded or bedded pen. So that's where the cow is going to be
Hmm.
able to get up easier, right? So, but yeah, that's something that, like I said, it is important because otherwise you can have a bigger issue if those cows continue to go to the parlor when they can, well, they are hurt or they cannot walk properly,
Hmm.
especially if it is icy, you know how winter gets also.
Hmm. Hmm.
So, yeah.
I'm going to scroll down. I'm going to cheat for this paragraph. I'm going to scroll down to the English version, especially for the benefit of the people who are listening on their podcast and are like, what are you talking about? So this is promoting physical well-being. Um, oh, this is an actual physical therapist. Oh, this is, I had no idea what we were talking about right now. Okay. This is why I love LHRO because they actually give you the English version. So we're
Hmm.
talking about they were actually working with the physical demands of the job for the people who were treating cows, doing hoof trimming. guided employees through exercises they could perform daily before starting their hoof trimming routines to stretch and strengthen their arms and hands, ensuring they were ready for the physical demands of the day. Okay. So, yes. So, what we're talking about right here in this section, and again, I apologize. You know what? This is exactly what we talked about. Things are going to be rough sometimes. So, we're
Yes.
talking about promoting the well-being of the employees themselves, and that goes back to Elemento Humano, the human element. Um, and yeah, I this is gonna sound super lame, not in like the term that we've been using it, right? But in the
Yeah, it
in
sounds
like
lame.
the millennial way, right? That like, oh, something so lame. Um, I crochet. And it's not particularly physically demanding. But they do tell you that you need to like stop and stretch out your hands every once in a while when you're crocheting because you'll get like carpal tunnel or like it can actually do that repetitive motion can do a lot of damage to your hands. And I know like when I milking cows, like I haven't milked cows in a long time. And when I go back to doing it, every time I take a break from milking cows and then go back and milk cows, I'm like, oh, I remember all of these muscles in my shoulders um, that I'd forgotten about before. Um, and then you do it for a couple shifts and you're like, okay, yeah, it's better again. But yeah, that repetitive motion in different muscles is actually something that can wear people out. And I know I talked to a lot of like older veterinarians, for example. The if you're sleeving a lot of cows and um, like doing that rotator cuff, right, having to put your arm in a lot of cows all the time. Those repetitive motions can really wear down people. You don't feel like it in the moment always, right? Especially once you're used to it. Um,
Yes. And
but
another thing is that, they're working at a dairy is starting really early in the morning. So you wake up and you grab something to eat if you are going to eat something and head to work. You get there, you get changed, and you start working. But it is true. It's just like when you work out, you need to warm up. But
yeah,
that's the thing. These are things that sometimes are overlooked because we are so concentrated and focused on milking the cows, for example, or hoof trimming. But
yeah.
no, you need to warm up doing certain exercises, maybe use some, because there are some gloves, special gloves that you use for hoof trimming that
Hmm.
keep your wrists in place
Yep.
and
Like
avoid,
braces, not really braces, but like compression gloves. Yeah.
I would say compression gloves. I think that's
Yeah.
the name, yes. So that way you, well, keep your hands safe, right? Or your
Yeah.
wrists, your ligaments, your muscles, etc.
Yeah. Well, and I think that goes back to all of this kind of goes back to El Elemento Humano, which is that you want your employees if you're building a good employee culture, you want them to have longevity, right? Just like cows. We want cows to have longevity and stay in the herd. We want our human employees to also have longevity as well. And I'm in my late 30s now, so not super old, but old enough to remember how much easier things were in my 20s, right? um, and when you're younger, you think that nothing's gonna like, oh, it's fine, I can just muscle through everything. And then you get to, oh, get out of here. Then you get to later in life, and you're like, well, I wish I'd listened when I was in my 20s. um, and so
Yeah,
encouraging this in employees is a great way to kind of and lengthen their not burn them out too soon, I guess would be a,
I
a way
guess
to say that.
it
Yeah.
is something that you just don't see it. Like who's gonna, like for example, yeah, who's gonna warm up before milking cows, right? People get ready to go, and well, the issue is, like you said later on, like when people have issues with their knees, like you mentioned, the rotator cuff or carpal tunnel. Yes. So when you do the same movement all the time, maybe when you are young, you just don't realize, you just do
Hmm.
it. But I mean, even I sometimes I have my arms tingle
Yeah.
because I used to do the same movement for long periods of time. Now you just do therapy, certain exercises, but when you are doing it, when you are working, you just don't realize about those things. You realize about those things year later, right?
Hmm.
So that's what you're
Yeah.
trying to prevent. Yes.
It's just like when we were preventing whether it's lameness, mastitis, whatever you're prevent like fresh cow issues, um, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And it's the same thing with El Elemento Humano. I'm gonna keep saying that because it is
El
what
elemento
it is
humano.
the title and it is something I can remember. So
Something
um
that sometimes it's also overlooked, but for example, you know what is we call it faja, which is like a safety belt, I
mhm.
think. So when you are loading calves into a trailer, you wouldn't believe the amount of employees who don't know how to lift a calf. They lift the
Oh.
calf with their backs instead of with
Mm-hmm.
their legs, and they keep doing that, and obviously eventually they are going to be hurt.
Yeah.
So it is good idea to first teach them how to lift a calf, which is something, wouldn't take but 3 minutes maybe. So they do it properly every time because I've seen those employees who are like complaining about back pain.
Yep.
Well, yes, because they don't know how to lift a calf. So they need
Yeah.
to use their legs. But anyway, and also, like I said, having this is like a safety belt or like a compression belt that you put,
Yep.
and that way, when you lift, your back is tight.
Yeah.
So you're not over exerting those muscles.
Yeah. I
Anyway,
know my dad always used to give me lectures about not ruining my back, right?
yes.
Because he had back problems.
Hmm.
But again, when you're 15 years old, you're like, this doesn't hurt. What are you talking about? And then it's 20 years later where you're like, well, hearing safety is another one that I lecture my students about a lot. Like not using hearing protection. Um,
Oh, yeah.
you'll that's something that you'll miss when it's gone. And you're actively, if you're not using hearing protection, you're actively harming your hearing. Um, not,
Hmm.
I mean, this is kind of related. Like hoof trimming is allowed. It's a loud event that happens, right? And yeah, I think I know a lot of my students will assume if they have noise canceling headphones in when they're power washing or doing whatever else that is hearing protection, but noise canceling headphones are not hearing protection. Um,
And no,
I
because they are not aware of what's going on around.
right. Yes. Yeah.
No, yeah,
Um,
I know that. Some students try to use it as an excuse that, oh, I'm protecting my ears. No,
yeah.
that's not protecting your ears.
Right. Yes.
And since we are talking about hoof trimming, I think there is one that two big ones, right? The grinder. The
Yes.
grinder is not only loud, but it's dangerous.
It grinds
So,
things. Yeah. Yeah.
So I know it's used all the time because, well, you need it, but that's another one where, well, training it goes a long way for, well, in this case. And they are also using the hoof trimming table that has a hydraulic mechanism.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Um, both of those things, I think, and a lot of times when we see, I have my theory about why we see so many injuries in agriculture is first of all, we work with a lot of big equipment and a lot of dangerous equipment.
Yes.
But I think the secondary reason for that is because we work with large equipment so much that we forget that it's dangerous, right? And it's the same thing with, tractors and the PTO and covering silage and uncovering silage. Um, the hoof trimming table, the grinder, whatever it is, right? We're just so used to dealing with this large equipment all the time or backing up the skid loader, right? Like we're so used to I do this every day and nothing bad's ever happened that you kind of get desensitized to the fact that you are using dangerous equipment. Um,
Mhm.
and so I really like, and again, seguridad, I think is a good term to if you're thinking about, Spanish vocabulary, that's a good one to
Yes.
to think about because worker safety is incredibly important. From a soft skills side, a little like it lets your employees know that you care about them, but then also like just from a purely practical side, it's keeping you from getting sued. It's keeping you from having like losing employees because they get injured on the job, right? It's keeping you from having to like um there's a lot of really good practical reasons that you should also care about people's safety in addition to the fact that people are people and so we should care about their safety because they're human beings, right? um so yeah, I think that's another really good uh thing to talk
I
about.
would say that just the same way we have meetings where we talk about mastitis and repro and lameness, we have those meetings to talk about safety too, right?
Yeah.
So, and I know it's difficult sometimes. It's difficult for people to do things because it's a change that you are introducing. But I remember, no, when we were wearing the fluorescent vests.
Yep.
I mean, right now it's pretty much industry standard.
Yeah.
But when you try to introduce that to people who are not used to it,
Yeah.
it is going to be like, oh, one more hassle. It's the same with gloves, the same with eye
I
glasses,
yep. Yep.
you know, ear protection. So there are many things you are not going to introduce all at once, but you need to be introducing them a little by little
Yeah.
because yes, it's safer for the employee and it's also safer for you because you are, working towards having a safer
Yep.
farm.
Yep. Yep.
Mhm. Yeah.
All right. I think the last thing they kind of focus on in this article is cons oh boy, construyendo,
Construyendo. Oh, you always
construyendo.
choose the easy ones.
Yeah, construyendo, yendo. Well, this is it's con confianza y compasión. So, is this
Yes.
confidentiality or
It's no,
confidence?
it's
Confidence?
confidence or
Okay.
trust.
Okay.
In this
Trust,
case, it's trust.
confianza in kindness, compassion.
Compassion,
Yeah.
yes. Compassion. Building trust and compassion. That's what it
Okay.
says. Yes. Very well. Yeah, so those are tough ones, but yeah.
But I think important ones,
Important
um,
ones, yes.
because it goes back to in our first episode, we spent a lot of time talking about psychological safety. And again, that might sound like a fuzzy nonsense word to a lot of people, but this is yet build trust and compassion. That's what this means right here is that idea of psychological safety. And especially when we're working on jobs that are dangerous, right? Having that ability to be able to say like, hey, something's wrong here is really important when you're working with large animals that you're like lifting into the air, right? And if you see an issue, people being able to have the confidence to be able to point out an issue before it becomes a problem is really important when we're talking about physical safety.
I'm gonna give you an example. For example, well, in winter, right? You need, for the most part, you're gonna need winter boots. Some people really don't know what winter boots are, or they think
Mm,
they are expensive, they think they are not necessary, till it is really, really cold and they can't
yeah,
feel their feet or their
yeah,
toes. I wouldn't say their feet. And sometimes these employees they don't say anything, but you visit a dairy in winter and you're like, how can you withstand the cold with those boots?
yeah,
And they are like, well, I mean, I have like three socks and I don't know, these are the boots that I have. And that's where employers also should be aware that okay, if it is going to be this cold this week, this guy has been wearing these rubber boots. Those are not gonna be good enough for him when he is breathing or when he is pushing whatever the job is. So it is
Yeah,
good to pay attention to those things because otherwise the employee would think that he has to suffer through the cold
yeah,
instead of knowing that he can ask for help or there are better options than those rubber boots.
right. Yeah. Yeah, if you grew up in, South Dakota, Iowa, we're in Iowa right now. I grew up in Michigan, right? I lived in Minnesota for a couple years. I mostly the farthest south I've ever lived was Manhattan, Kansas, right? And so to me, winter is like I kind of feel like I know how to handle winter. But if you grew up in Mexico, or Costa Rica or Guatemala or wherever else, right, you might not have the same. Um, you're acclimated to the warm weather, and we found
But
out when
not
I
to the
when I
cold
took
one.
when I went down to Florida in April, like we were not all of my Midwestern students were not acclimated to the hot weather, right? And it kind of works the same way when you're going the other way. You might not understand or know, or ever have been some of the things we kind of take for granted, you may never have had
Yeah.
experience
And
with.
let me tell you another funny thing, but you can tell people temperatures are going to be 20 below Fahrenheit. They have no clue. That doesn't say anything.
Right. Yeah.
It doesn't compute because they are like, whatever. I mean, I have a really nice coat that my grandma gave me on my birthday. This should be enough. It's the
Yeah.
thickest one I have. No,
Yeah.
no, no. Those coats are not for this kind of weather.
Yeah.
So
Do you use Celsius down in Central America?
do
Or
you use
do you use Celsius or Fahrenheit?
Celsius?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I
that's the other one. People
Yeah.
understand about Celsius.
And once you hit like what is it, -30 or -40 or whatever, it's the same. But
What I do, what I do, yes, after below, I think it's below 32, everything is the same, but I'm not sure. I will have to check. But let's say if you are talking about Fahrenheit, let's say that the weather is 32. Let's use that
yeah,
example. So 32, you subtract 32, that means zero, right?
right.
So
But it's a
zero
really complicated
Celsius.
equation.
But I do
Um,
it that like that, and that's simplified. Let's say
yeah,
just subtract 32 to whatever Fahrenheit number you have, and whatever you have, that's
yeah.
the
And so it's the temperature in Celsius times 9/5 plus
yeah,
32
yes,
is the formula. And so it's not a one-to-one thing, but I do kind of the same.
no,
So I
it
lived
is
in
not.
Canada, and so Canada uses Celsius, and I had to get used to Celsius. So I had to go the other way. So I always just remember that 32 is zero, and I remember that 20 is 70, right? And that kind of helps me think about it. But to your point, though, if you have somebody who grew up with Celsius and then they see like the temperature outside is going to be 0 degrees, that is not that cold. That's freezing, but it's not that cold in Celsius. But if it's 0 degrees Fahrenheit, substantially colder. And I know, like, that's one thing that I noticed when I went from Fahrenheit to Celsius that uh, all the temperatures seemed like they'd be too cold. That's what I had to get used to. I was like, oh, it's going to be 17 outside. That feels like it's like so cold out there. But then it was like, oh, this is like a nice balmy mid 60s, right? Um, And so
Yeah.
in it can go the other way too when you're like when you see that it's going to be 35 outside and you're like, "Oh, that doesn't sound too hot." And then you're like, "Oh, crap. I should have not layered up like this, right?" And so yeah, if we kind of got off on a tangent here that that
But this is good
but it's
info.
important I think when it comes to
Let's
the
say
physical safety of your
I'm
employees. Yep.
gonna give you a quick examples. Right now, 82 degrees. If you subtract 32, that equals 50. Now multiply 50 by zero point 0.5 and that
Yeah.
equals 25. So 25 Celsius, that's the temperature when we are at 82. Not exactly, but very close.
Yeah.
So that
Yeah.
way you have a quick way to gauge temperatures.
Yeah. I don't I think I never got to the point where I would just do the math. I would just kind of be like, this is what it feels like right now. Right? And it's just more, I just intuited it after a while. The moment when I knew I had like mentally converted to Celsius is I was back home for American Thanksgiving visiting my parents, and I walked through the living room and I saw that it was supposed to be in the 20s. And I was like, oh, it's gonna be so hot. Right? And but no, it was 20 degrees Fahrenheit. So yeah, that is,
Mhm.
I think, probably something that people overlook a lot, right? Is that you don't, it's hard to know what the temperature is going to be if you're used to dealing in Celsius and you're not used to the Fahrenheit yet. But
And we are talking about temperature, ambient temperature, but imagine how important it is when this is when we are feeding calves.
yeah,
And the
yeah.
temperature of the milk, they don't
Uh-huh.
think it's a big deal if it is 80. They
Yeah.
feel, oh, well, it's still warm.
Yeah.
They don't know. If they don't know, this is something. That's why I teach them this part.
Oh, that would be a good, we should find a calf article to talk about. That'd be a good one.
Yeah.
But all right, let's recap. Because this was supposed to be a shorter episode, but we've been chatting for a while. I knew that would happen though. We
Have so many
so
things to talk
yes,
about.
so we talked about coha and cohera, which are some terms for lameness, right?
Mhm.
So cohera would be lameness, coha means she is lame.
Yes.
Um Rengha, am I saying that
Renga.
would be like a more colloquial term for lameness?
Yes.
We did an easy one to remember. Mastitis is mastitis.
Mastitis is mastitis.
Yes. But some ones that I wrote down that I want to start practicing and using more often, because they talk some of the things that relate to some of the other things that we've talked about is this bienestar físico, the welfare or well-being. Seguridad, we spent a lot of time talking about, and that's safety.
Safety.
Confianza is trust, and
Trust.
compasión is kindness,
Compassion.
compassion. Kind of the same thing. Yes.
Well, I guess.
A little
Kindness
bit.
is
Yeah.
more like when you are a kind person is that you treat people well, you know,
Yes.
you
And compassion is more
actually
like you
go out
care
of your
about.
way.
Yeah.
Compassion is when you care on a
Yeah.
deeper level than
Yeah.
you try to feel the same pain that the other person is feeling.
Yeah. Like empathy.
Kind of
Yeah.
like empathy. Yeah.
Gotcha. So I wrote down a few words that I'm going to try to practice a little bit more. Hopefully, our listeners will also try to practice some of these terms a little bit more. Hopefully, you enjoyed this discussion. Um, and thank you for joining us on um, Viernes Español. Sorry, I blanked there.
Viernes, viernes
Yeah.
de español. Yes.
It's like, what am I doing? Viernes Español. Thank you for joining us. Gracias for joining us on Viernes Español. And I already forgot. We just talked about this on our previous episode, but see you
It's a
next week.
difficult one.
Is nos vemos, right?
Ajá. Yes, nos vemos
And
la
then what?
siguiente
What?
semana. Nos vemos la siguiente semana. Yes.
La siguiente?
Siguiente, which is next. La
Okay.
siguiente semana.
Siguiente semana. So thank you for joining us on Spanish Fridays. Nos vemos la siguiente semana.
Siguiente semana. Very
All
well.
right.
Good deal.
All
Nos
right.
vemos. Gracias.
Gracias. All right.